Welcome back to The Explainer. If you love pulling apart the structure of ancient texts to see exactly how they tick, well, you're in the right place. Today, we're unpacking Psalm 6. As I was digging through this text, I was honestly blown away by the psychological journey packed into just a few short lines. It literally maps out the human experience from complete, utter despair to sudden vindication. And by looking closely at how it's built, we're going to see exactly how it delivers such a massive emotional punch. Okay, let's dive into this. Just look at these words. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. This isn't just, feeling a little down. This is profound, exhausting grief. It's a 3,000-year-old description of that kind of insomnia and deep anxiety that completely takes over your physical space. By starting right here, we immediately feel the immense, overwhelming weight of the emotion we're about to unpack. The speaker is holding absolutely nothing back. And honestly, it's that raw vulnerability that makes the structure of this text so incredibly captivating. Now, before we really tear into the words themselves, take a look at the physical layout of the text here in the English Standard Version. Notice how it's actually organized. Right up at the very top, before the numbered verses even start, we get these introductory headers. Then the text itself is broken down into distinct stanzas and numbered verses. This visual structure is basically our roadmap. It proves this isn't just a random stream of consciousness, right? It's a carefully crafted, deliberate composition. We're going to track the emotional movement through these very specific structured blocks of text. Let's start right at the top with that header. It says, "To the choir master with stringed instruments, according to the Sheminith," a psalm of David. So what is the Sheminith? Well, checking the footnotes, we find this fascinating little detail. It's probably a musical or liturgical term. And that is a huge piece of context for us. It tells us this poem was never meant to just be read silently in your head. No, this was designed for performance. It was meant for the choir master, intended to be felt along with the physical vibration of stringed instruments. We're basically analyzing an ancient song or liturgical chant here.
So, Movement 1, the descent into anger and divine anger. We are kicking off the U-shaped emotional arc of this poem with a really heavy downward spiral into physical and mental descent.
The text opens in verse 1 with this immediate, desperate plea. "O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath." Just saying it out loud, you can feel that heavy, deliberate pace. It sets a tone of immense pressure right out of the gate. The speaker is terrified of divine anger. They feel like they're trapped under this crushing weight of cosmic discipline, and they are literally begging for it to stop. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the text visually layers the speaker's suffering. Just look at this cascading list of symptoms from verses 2 through 7. The speaker is languishing. Their very bones are troubled. That is deep, structural, physical pain. But it doesn't stop there. Their soul also is greatly troubled. They're weary with moaning, and as we saw, flooding the bed with tears. And finally, their eye wastes away from grief. The author brilliantly stacks these symptoms to show us how mental anguish and physical deterioration are just completely intertwined as this downward spiral accelerates. Then, right in the middle of all this intense suffering, in verse 3, the text breaks its own rhythm with an agonizing pause. "But you, O Lord, how long?" This right here is the central, tension-building question of the entire text. It perfectly captures that feeling of waiting in the dark, enduring unimaginable pain, and just crying out to the universe, wondering when, or even if relief is ever going to come. It's pure psychological exhaustion. That brings us to Movement 2, the threat of Sheol, which is essentially a divine negotiation. The psalmist is shifting gears here, moving from just describing their pain to actively negotiating for their life. This is where the whole dynamic shifts. In verse 4, we hit the core of this appeal. "Turn, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love." Notice what's happening. The speaker isn't saying, "Hey, I'm flawless. I deserve to be saved." Not at all. Instead, they appeal directly to the character of the divine. They're asking for deliverance specifically because of the Lord's steadfast love. It's a highly strategic move, appealing to the established nature of the one they're praying to. And honestly, this is where the negotiation gets incredibly fascinating. Verse 5 asks, "In Sheol, who will give you praise?" The speaker is framing this as a literal, almost legal negotiation with the divine. They're laying out an argument. Look, if I die and descend into Sheol, the realm with the dead, I can't remember you. I can't praise you. They are basically arguing that letting them die actually deprives the Lord of worship and remembrance. It is such a bold, rational argument to make when you're in the midst of total despair.
But right after that intense negotiation, we hit verse 7. My eye wastes away because of grief, it grows weak because of all my foes. This is it, folks. We have reached the absolute emotional bottom of the U-shape. The grief is so profound and it's compounded by the presence of all these surrounding enemies that the speaker's vitality is entirely depleted. They are physically wasting away. The descent is totally complete.
But don't click away, because here comes movement 3, the ascent and the sudden resolution. We are about to experience a dramatic turn in the text, so the pace is going to pick up right here. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact turning point. Verse 8 hits us with whiplash. Depart from me, all you workers of evil. Boom! The exhaustion, gone. The pleading, gone. In a split second, the speaker possesses this commanding, unshakable confidence. They are actively banishing their foes. We are suddenly shooting straight up the right side of that U-shaped emotional arc out of the darkness.
So why the sudden shift? Well, the text walks us through a rapid succession of validations in verses 8 and 9. 1. The Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. 2. The Lord has heard my plea. And 3. The Lord accepts my prayer. That desperate, logical negotiation we saw just a minute ago, it absolutely worked. It's been completely validated. The Lord didn't just listen. The Lord actively accepted the prayer.
So the crucial point is how the author uses language to prove the situation has flipped. Just look at this incredible linguistic symmetry. Back in verses 2 and 3, during that awful descent, the speaker cried out about their troubled bones and greatly troubled soul. But now, in verse 10, who is troubled? All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled. The exact words used to describe the psalmist's agonizing descent are now turned completely around and weaponized against their foes. It's brilliant. The poem then concludes with this definitive statement: the enemies shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. Notice that. The vindication isn't some slow, gradual recovery. It happens in a moment. It's instantaneous. The workers of evil are totally vanquished, completing the emotional ascent of the poem. The speaker stands entirely victorious. So we've mapped the whole U-shaped journey of Psalm 6, right? From the paralyzing depths of tears, through a bold divine negotiation, all the way to an explosive, instantaneous moment of confidence. It's an absolute masterpiece of emotional structure. But I want to leave you with this provocative thought. How might this ancient progression, from desperate weeping to instantaneous confidence, reframe how you process your own moments of deep grief or opposition today? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember, keep looking for the structure in everything you read.